Good morning, students, and remember February is Black History Month.
Why do we have to be bothered with African American history anyway?
African American history?
Yes, African American history.
Don't you mean Black history?
Whatever.
What do you mean, whatever?
Like I said, it's every year we're interrupted with African American history. By now, everybody should know about Dr. King and Rosa Parks. Do we have to keep going down memory lane?
Well, I don't think you should look at African American history like that.
First, it's not African American history, it's Black history.
Oh, sorry.
For your information, Black people have played an intricate role in American history.
Yes, like slavery and Martin Luther King, I Had a Dream speech.
Let's not forget the Underground Railroad has both black and white conductors.
Conductors? What are conductors?
Conductors are free black and white people who help fugitive slaves traveling through the Underground Railroad. Also, there are many other black people besides Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King that contributed to black history.
I hear that Rosa Parks was not the first person to refuse to give up her seat to a white person.
What do you mean? Miss Parks was not the first person to refuse to give her seat up to a white person?
I remember hearing something like that years ago. I believe the lady's name was Claudette Colvin.
She was 15 years old when she was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white person in the year of 1955.
Sounds like she may have inspired Rosa Parks to do the same.
She not only inspired Rosa Parks, she also played a vital role in the Montgomery bus boycott.
Didn't Miss Parks get arrested 9 months after Claude was arrested?
Yes, it took Miss Parks that long to stand up for what she believed in.
If that's the case, and then why is Rosa Parks given all the credit?
According to Claudette, she explained in an interview that they went with Rosa Parks because they thought she would be too militant for them.
Too militant? A 50-year-old who stood up for what she believed was right was too militant to represent her people?
That's pretty much how it is when a black person stands up for what's right.
Militant or not, she was the reason why, of June 1956, the Supreme Court deemed that bus segregation was unconstitutional.
In my opinion, Claudette Colvin should be acknowledged for her bravery and her ability to not just stand up for what she believed was in, but equality for all people.
I agree with Martin Luther King's quote. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Well, I got a woman way over town that's good to me.
Okay, February is the month that we acknowledge Black history. Today we will be discussing Benjamin Banneker. I will call each group up and you all will present what you have learned, something that you've learned about Benjamin Banneker. We will begin with Group A.
Ms. Turner, this assignment was challenging because I had people in my group that disagree with the impact that he made in history.
Well, that is interesting. Can you explain to the class what your group disagreed with?
He disagreed with the amount of time that it took Mr. Banneker to build parts of Washington, D.C., and he argued that it wouldn't be possible to memorize the design and build all the buildings, the parks, the streets, and much more in only 2 days.
To be honest, it's hard to believe that when I can barely even remember my own parents' phone number.
It is possible for Benjamin Banneker. Remember, the original person that was hired quit and took the design with him. He had no idea that Mr. Banneker had studied the layout and was able to complete the job by what he remembered.
I agree he was a smart guy, but to build a city in 2 days? Come on.
It is if you have slaves that helped. In 1792, there were over 200 slaves labored to build many government buildings. They built the Supreme Court, the White House, and other government buildings. Even with that much help, there's no way that they could have completed it by working a normal 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, but remember, they were slaves. They wasn't working regular 9 to 5 hour jobs.
Slaves also began building monuments in 1848. A slave named Philip Reed made the Statue of Freedom that sits on top of the Capitol Dome in Washington, D.C.
I am impressed with the information that you provided to the class today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us regarding Benjamin Banneker?
There is one more thing that he did that I think is pretty cool.
Okay, do you mind sharing it?
See, what had happened was, in 1753, at the age of 21, Benjamin borrowed a pocket watch from a wealthy friend. He took the watch apart and studied its components. He was fascinated by the watch. He decided to invent the first wooden clock that had worked for 40 years.
After that invention, Banneker was able to set up his own clock and repair business.
Wow, that was an amazing presentation of Benjamin Banneker. Thank you all for sharing with us what you've learned today. What I hope that you all take from this lesson is that African Americans contribute more than free labor. According to author Cassandra Dillard, African Americans contributed literature, art, inventions, innovations, and customs that helped shape the culture of the United States and the world. As teachers, we must not forget the extent of materials to explore. For instance, in math and science, we have our Black scientists and math musicians that made modern-day conference possible through their works in aeronautics and computer technology. In social studies and history, the influence of Africans and African American traditions and customs in America is evident. The taste of Southern cooking or soul food is shaped by the way enslaved Africans prepare food and by such as black-eyed peas, okra, and yams. It is the music that we listen to, and instruments such as the drums and banjos, all has African roots of African Americans. Modern music grew from blues, jazz, and gospel traditions that are historically Black. Through these explorations, we hope that Black history will evolve into something bigger than stories about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and the Underground Railroad. According to Cassandra, she states that Black history is not a tragedy, and learning it can and should be a celebration.
Come and love your daddy all night long.
During the 1950s and 1960s, there was a struggle for social justice that took place. Brown versus the Board of Education was finalized in 1954. This court ruling declared the process of separating schools for Black children and white children unconstitutional.
That's pretty cool. That's why we can go to the same school now?
Well, it doesn't quite happen like that. When the Brown versus Board of Education was decided, Ruby Bridges wasn't even born yet. It actually took 6 years before the law was put into place.
Why did it take 6 years to execute the law?
To be truthful, white people didn't want Black children going to school with their children. Ruby actually made history when she walked into school that day.
How did she make history by walking into a school?
You'll see.
The morning of November 14th, I arrived with the marshals. They walked in front of me and my mom, and two walked behind us. I could see the looks of angry people's faces as they shouted and shook their fists as we walked past. I held my mother's hand and walked into the school. All I wanted to do was go to school and be a good girl and learn. The first day of school, I never got to meet my teacher or the room I was going to be assigned to. I sat in the office and watched angry white parents run into the school and get their kids. All day I watched them come and go and look at me and my mom with anger in their eyes.
Why would anyone be so mean to a 6-year-old little girl?
I think it was because people don't like change.
Some people don't know any better and don't want to learn or are afraid to learn.
I met Miss Henry that day. Although she looked like an angry mom, outside she was much different than them. She was one of the most loving people I had ever known. Miss Henry taught me so much that year. The greatest lesson I learned was a lesson of Martin Luther King that taught us. He taught us to never judge people by the color of their skin. He said that God makes each of us unique in ways that go so much deeper. Every day I spent with Miss Henry proved Martin Luther King right.
Wow, that took a lot of courage for Ruby.
I wonder how Miss Henry felt.
I had the surprise of a lifetime in a way I could never have imagined. It all came in a phone call from the New Orleans Superintendent of Schools, Dr. James Redmond, offering me a first grade teaching position. and the school was to be one of the chosen to be desegregated. I was totally thrilled, and I was eager to get back to students. Above all, I was so excited my new school was to experience something so special. On Monday morning of November 14th, as I prepared for a new day, I drove to an adjacent street to park my car and saw the mob before the school. Soon after seeing my bare classroom, I was told if I returned tomorrow, I'd meet my new student. I did not mind that I wasn't welcome, but I was certain I was returning. I was going to meet one who was unwelcomed as I, and how beautiful that forever memorable moment when I took Ruby's hand and together we walked to my class, and where she and I would spend alone and together through June's school closing. We had only each other, and we, in truth, needed no other. As much as I was there for her, she was there for me.
I've been so many places in my life and time. I sung a lot of songs, I've made some bad rhymes. I've acted out my life in stages with 10,000 people watching. But we're alone and I'm just singing this song for you.